Good afternoon, everyone, and I think we're getting ready to get started. I wanted to welcome everybody to this week's special NCDOT presentation for NCDOT's OpenX Rollout Week. If you don't know by now, OpenX refers to the different Bentley Connect editions. NCDOT is a proud partner with NC Department of Transportation to bring these unit updates. Today's session 8, but before we get started, I wanted to take care of a couple of housekeeping details. The webinar is a presentation, so all attendees should be muted. Please mute yourself and do not mute all. At any time during the webinar, you can submit your questions into the chat box, and as time allows, someone will field these questions to the presenter either during or during a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I have currently put in the NCDOT email address, the NCDOT OpenX email address into the chat box if you want to copy that down in case any questions come about later. And the subject line has also been listed in the chat box. At any time during the presentation, if it freezes up or you can't hear the presenter, just simply leave the meeting and join back in, and that should fix your issues. We will be recording this webinar and we'll share the link after the event. NCDOT will be offering PDH credits to those who have registered on the website for this event. After this session, NCDOT will send out PDH receipts to those who have attended this live meeting, and no credit will be given to those who watch the recorded presentation. And now I'd like to introduce Emery Kincaid with Location and Surveys as our presenter. He also has Faith Driver from Photogrammetry to answer any questions if some come up that are photogrammetry specific. So right now, Emery, it's all yours. Take it away.
Thanks, Tonya. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to speak about our survey implementation today. And if everyone's like me, when I first started seeing the NCDOT OpenX event, my mind automatically went to the X Games, which then took me to Hunger Games. Now, I know I have a warped mind, and my girls are telling me that I'm not funny. But this has been a grueling thing, getting this implemented. So if this was an event, I would honestly say this is probably an Ironman event. This is something where we're getting close to the finish line. We're not close yet. We're getting closer, though. Especially with our staffing concerns. The group that I look over used to be a group of 5 people, and now it's a group of 2. And I really don't see any relief in sight there. But it's been a real struggle, a juggling act. And fortunately, we have a good base to work off of that was provided by Tim Merrill before he retired. The thing, excuse me, just a moment while I catch up here. Sometimes the word model is confusing. So what's in a name? Most of the time when our conversations really revolve around the digital twin. But also sometimes when you're looking at models, you're speaking of models or the different drawings that reside in a microstation file. And then, of course, if photogrammetry is involved in conversations, we're talking about stereo models where they're taking the photography and doing the mapping off of it. So as mappers and surveyors, we've been accustomed to dealing with 3D for years. And delivering 3D survey data doesn't necessarily mean a model. And in many ways, we are not as impacted by ORD as designers. Our tools are going to change, but our workflows and products are very much the same as they've always been. We're on the design end. their workflows are changing quite a bit. So we're actually getting closer to the finish line than some of the people who are doing the design work. Usually our involvement in a design survey is before the design and after design. Like I said, we're involved on both the ends, but most of our work is directed at the initial surveys. And that's what we have put most of our efforts in as far as our workspaces currently. And while I don't want to jinx anything, I feel we are in a really good place going forward. All our element templates and feature definitions are in place. And that's not to say we don't have issues and challenges. And of course, we're going to have to do some tweaking as things go on. Our biggest issue currently is annotation. And hopefully this next release that was just sent out this week will resolve some of those issues. In SS4, and what we currently deliver is a full survey file, which is basically a 2D file that includes our planimetrics. So our roads are in there, our utilities are included, property, a lot of different things. And then of course we deliver a DTM file, which is a 3D file that includes all our break lines and spots that we build our 10 file off of. And then of course we deliver a GPK. Going forward into ORD, what we're currently thinking we're going to deliver is a file, a survey file. This survey file will have 3D with almost everything in 3D. It will also have another model in it, that's a microstation model, that will include our 2D parameters, such as our property and existing alignments, as well as it will include a terrain model. All of this is subject to change. Utilities, for one, John did an excellent presentation this morning about the challenges of the utilities. We will probably at some point in time start producing a model for the utilities. But that does have a lot of different challenges, such as John was speaking earlier, how do we locate these? Do we really place them at minimal depth and then later through test holes, we actually change that model as we go? Those are just questions we got to work out and decide a good workflow for. Here, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. I'm going to show you a microstation here now, just to give you an idea of what we got. Unlike some of the earlier presentations, I decided to put a real challenge on myself and do this live, which is probably going to make me look like a fool, but you know, it hadn't stopped me before. As you see here, this is this looks much the same as what we would have delivered before. Of course, you see here, this is a 3D file up here. And as I was talking about, we're producing two models. One is a 3D model, and you can see from the icon here. The other is a 2D model. In this case, we call it property and alignment. Is that what we're going to continue to call it going forward? Probably not. We still haven't worked out the details of our naming conventions, but that is probably what we'll do. Now, if you look here, what we've done is we've taken this file, and I'm going to just move my screen around here a little bit. And you're going to see that this file is in 3D. Gets kind of ugly when I start moving it up here because everything here is at elevation. And everything here is at 0 because it's 2D. So in effect, what we've really done is we've referenced the 2D 2 to 3D. So I can come in here and I can just simply toggle this off. And we see just the 3D aspects of the file. we zoom into some of these areas here, I want you to see some of the issues we're dealing with. We have the pipes, they're three-dimensional. And of course, I don't want you to think that means this is a model, because it's not. This is just 3D items in 3D space. But especially in the areas of the catch basins, we are trying to do this automated, which gives you a little bit of faith that your labels are always going to get in, because it's easy to miss some labels when you're doing them by hand. But as you see, it gets real ugly here. Now, our hopes were that we were just going to move our text around and everything was going to be great for us. But we found that Bentley, through some of their automated mechanisms, is taking this text and putting it right back to where it began. And that's really causing us a little bit of grief. But that's the ugly we have right now. Everything that you see that is being drawn here, I think these tools are going to work exceptionally well for you. We've tested them quite a bit. Some of our field offices have done quite a bit of testing on this. So I think you'll find that they work very well. So this looks like basically a merged FS file from the past, as well as a DTM file. Here you see the spots, you see the breaks. And of course, like I said, it's 3D. So if we turn this around, you're going to start seeing some of the aspects of it being in 3D. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the display style just a little bit. Get this over. So I'm going to change this from wireframe to the modeling, because that gives you a little bit better indication of what's going on. Around the border of this, you're going to see a 10 hole or a terrain model hole. Try to use the correct terminology. I can come in here and I can simply turn on our triangles or whatever I want to, the contours. You start seeing what we're looking at. If I go into the pipes or the piping areas, I need to change my translucency a little bit, but these pipes show up in 3D space correctly. And of course, as you see, they do show up as a circular object, as a pipe. One of the things that we've been talking about is the labels and the issues that we've been having with the labels. It is a bit frustrating. However, we may find that somewhere down the road, for example, Hydro may come to us and say, you know, we really don't need those labels, because I can just as easily hover over those points and I can see what the elevation is on it without all of that extra clutter. So we may find that we don't need the labels, but for now, we felt that everyone's used to it. We need to produce those. With that being said, go back to our PowerPoint. We hope to have training available in roughly the September, October timeframe of this year. We're lagging behind a little bit with what Roadway's doing, but we're going to have the same approach. We're going to have a series of modules. They'll consist of videos, training manuals, as well as data sets that can be utilized. The whole idea is that you can have a video that will guide you through the process. and you will have those same data sets. So you can process it, start and stop that video as you need to assure that everything's working out correctly for you. Our hopes is that we will start this out with a kickoff with a live training event through Microsoft Teams that will be available both to in-house personnel and our PF partners. This gives you an idea of the training modules that we're looking at. There's probably a few missing, but this is going to be workflow training, and it should guide you through, if not the complete process, the large majority of the process from start to finish that we're involved in. With that said, here's my email. You can contact me regarding the survey workspaces. And then, of course, there's Jeff's information also if you need it. And with that, I'm finished. Thank you, Tonya.
You're welcome. And that was some great information, and I like your live presentation did just fine. So pat yourself on the back for that one. I did want to open it up and remind everybody that you're welcome to do some either unmute yourself and ask questions live, or put some questions in the chat box, and we can go through those and read them out loud so everybody can hear what the questions are. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free.
And while everyone's considering that, Tonya, I just want to take a moment to personally thank Emery and the team. Emery has been so diligent in working through this week in and week out. There has not been a shortage of challenges, so I just want to thank him and the team. Just for take that moment.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, seriously, thank you, Emery.
There was a question for the labels. Are those 2D labels or 3D labels? I'm just going to the chat questions here.
Okay, the labels are 3D labels. Let me go back to our MicroStation for a moment. If you see right here, most of our labels are 3D. They're in 3D space at the same elevation as whatever we're labeling. Unfortunately, I say nothing's working. I shouldn't say that. We've had quite a few things that have been challenges. And as you see down below, there's a little bit of text that we tried to take advantage of. This is a project that was done about 10 years ago. So we wanted to use this as a real test of what we could do if we were to do it now in ORD. So we tried to take advantage of some of the 2D labels that were done previously, and that's what you're seeing there when you see that stuff floating down at 0 elevation. In fact, that's what you see right here with these leaders. So this is definitely a work in progress. One of the things you'll see is these buildings are floating because when photogrammetry picks out these buildings, they're using the eaves of the building. So these buildings are floating in 3D space. Now, you may see some of that. If we were to locate it ourselves, we would probably have this floating more closely to the ground because that's where our shots would be taken. So there's going to be some unique challenges to get used to. In regard of this, though, that is never really utilized for the design. So it's just more of a visual challenge than anything.
Emery, this is John. I have one question, and if I could, please. When you're talking about the labeling on the drainage there, most of the drainage lines are hard lines that are fixed and have inverts on each end. How would we be labeling or expect to see labeling down the road for a utility like a water line that could be flexible? Would it just be labeled kind of like a PI would be on a vertical alignment where you would have, however you determined it, test holes or known areas, and those areas would have a label versus being able to get an idea that the entire depth is the same, if that makes sense?
Well, that kind of makes sense, John, and I don't know that I can clearly answer that. I do know that we've got some real challenges ahead for us when it comes to the utilities. You had mentioned earlier in your presentation, and I really like the way you said it, that we were trying to get more to a model-centric versus the crayon drawings. Well, if you look at what you guys do on the design end, you're actually working in 2D view and everything just happens in the 3D. And you get some very realistic looking 3D models. Well, as you see, I'm kind of dealing with the crayon models over here in the survey world because, and I can't put it in words that will make any sense to anyone, but survey just works differently than the design side. And so the labeling that you're speaking of, I'm not entirely sure. I think that what we're going to do, while this file may not have any great utilities, we're definitely going to have issues where when that utility snakes around, we're not going to necessarily be able to show that. And it's, well, utility is just a challenge, right?
Absolutely, always is.
Yeah. Emery, John, are you finished with your question? I don't want to
Yes,
interrupt
ma'am.
you.
Yep.
Thank you. Emery, there's another question, actually an excellent question about condemnation, like PDFs. I mean, excuse me, PSTs. Do you know, is there a plan for those to be in 3D, or is that something we're going to still do in 2D since it's just a litigation map?
Honestly, Tonya, those will probably be 2Ds.
Mm-hmm.
Just from the aspect, property's 2D.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine that the bulk of that is going to be in 2D. That's part of the process that we really haven't spent enough. We haven't spent enough time on that. We have got some of the tools in place, but it's still got to be fleshed out.
Understood. And I guess, like just kind of building on that too, as far as, stuff that happens after the design, you're still working through like right of way staking and how we're going to do those plan sheets and stuff.
Yes, we have done some of the work towards the right-of-way sheet process.
Mhm.
And but we haven't completed that. I do think the process will actually be easier because we're going to be able to hopefully utilize the sheet layouts and everything that is set up by roadway. So it should be a very simple process. But then again, until I see something and I can work with it, I don't know exactly what has to be done.
Understood. So, and you did speak about property and, do you have, I know it's something probably still a work in progress, just like much of everything else is, but do you have an idea of how property is going to be analyzed within ORD?
That's a loaded question there. No, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I think we've worked out a reasonable workflow inside of ORD. That is one of the things that should be addressed in our training manuals and videos that we produce. it's something we haven't got far enough with, but I do believe we got a process worked out that makes reasonable sense. And, you know, at first, it's hard to put this in words, but at first, when I've been working with ORD for quite a few years, when we first started working, we didn't have any survey tools whatsoever inside of ORD. So it has progressed and it's gotten easier. They've given us a few tools. When we first started, we could not enter a piece of property with a curve in it easily. I mean, it would take us hours to get that in, and that just shouldn't be. Those tools are now in place. And I'm hopeful that our videos and training modules will show everyone how to do that easily.
Okay. Looking forward to being able to get our hands on this kind of stuff. I do have another question, and I definitely don't want to take up all the question time. So if anybody wants to interrupt me, please feel free to do so. My question is more like with photogrammetry shell mapping. Is it going to be something that we're going to, you know, how currently we get the DTM and then we get the shell mapping, the actual planimetrics. Is that going to be more of a one file that's going to have both information so that the shell mapping will be more in a model form, or how's that going to be handled? Do you have any idea?
Well, Faith may correct me here, but my thoughts are you'll be receiving a file that will have everything in it, and it'll all be 3D.
Okay.
Am I correct
That
in
is
that, Faith?
correct. Yes, unless someone decides they want something completely different, that is what we have done for the pilot project, and that is what everyone is reviewing right now.
And as you see, Tonya, the bulk of this file that I have up right now on the screen, that was provided by photogrammetry. You know, we basically collect the things that we want a little more higher accuracy and the things that photogrammetry can't see. But the bulk of that was provided by photogrammetry.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Hey, Emery, if I could jump in real quick with a question. You mentioned this is G3633, and this will be the pilot project that all the units will be stepping through. Is this ready to go? Is this final survey file available?
It's going to be available within, it's like I was telling Jeff, we keep saying it'll be done this time, and then we run across something else that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
But I do believe that this will be either available next week or the following week. As you see, we've got, and there's some of these issues that we've got, Jason, that I don't really see as issues. It's just something you're going to have to deal with. For example, when you see these leaders that are just tremendously long going straight down, that's not a big deal when you're looking at this, and you guys most likely be looking at this from a top view. So I don't necessarily see that it will be a big issue for you.
Okay. And that's just a conversion issue anyway, isn't it? I mean, if you're creating one from scratch.
It is, you know, to be honest, we took some shortcuts, right?
Yeah.
We had something was already existing, and we said, well, text is kind of minor, so why don't we just copy it from the existing stuff? And that's how we ended up with that.
Okay.
But right now we've got a few things that we need to do. We need to fix some crossing break lines that have been generated in the terrain model. And there's a few other small items, but we should have it to you soon.
Emery, we had a quick question about, are the survey shots brought in on the correct level? Could you open up your features and show them how features are utilizing the same old field codes, and this is what's brought them in on the right levels?
Oh, sure. Come in here to our standards. We've created, or I say we, I use we pretty generally. Tim created this when he was here. We have a series of feature definitions. So for example, I will go into roads because that's all we deal with, right? If we go edge of pavement roads, move my screen over here, you'll see that I've got the 3001 feature code there. So yes, to answer your question, everything will go to the correct level, the correct symbology. Unfortunately, anyone who's used to doing mapping for us is accustomed to NC Map, and NC Map no longer exists. Probably the best tool in NC Map, in my opinion, was AutoText. So right now we're trying to give you something that's very similar to AutoText, but we'll never we'll never fully get all the functionality that AutoText gives us. Is that what you want me to show, Tim?
Yeah, it seems, I think that answered the question that was asked. Can you quickly go up there and show the two annotation tools that are based on features to show what Bentley has put in?
Oh, okay. You're talking about up here in drawing production?
Yes, sir.
You change my display out a little bit. One of the things that Bentley give us, and what you're seeing here, I know this is a mess to look at, but they give us this ability to annotate an element. So we can set rules for what we want to annotate. And in fact, you should find one of these pipes. When you see a pipe here that's got this 18-inch RCP, and it's got these inverts that are perpendicular to the end of the pipe, that's what Tim set up previously for us. And we really like that functionality. Unfortunately, this version of MicroStation or ORD that we have, that tool got broken. So we discontinued this and we started moving towards this. Now I'm hoping this will be fixed and we'll move back to this because I really like that. If this was working properly, all we would have to do is go annotate. It'll tell us what do you want to annotate. And for example, I can come in here and I can pick my particular thing. I can hit reset, and have we set up rules for that, it would annotate that accordingly to whatever we tell it that we need to. So in the case of a pipe, all you'd basically have to do is click on the pipe, tell it to annotate it, and it would drop all the inverts and your text in place. There's a model annotation, which I don't think we'll really use so much. And that way, if you've got the rules set up, you just click that, and everything that's got rules set on it, it annotates. Well, that works great in some instances, and others where, for instance, let's say we wanted to annotate the road information. We don't want to annotate every element. So I don't think we'll be using that too often. One of the things that we've been putting in place lately is the labels and notes. In fact, if you look at the lower section of this file, you'll see that we've been working on that. So we're trying different things. In some ways, it's hard to tell which one's going to stick.
Cool. Emery, another question came through. Someone is saying that they're assuming the alignments, the ELN, ALN, BLN, will be delivered inside the FS file in 2D. How
Yes.
will roadway and other units be able to use their design 3D features in a 2D feature?
Well, alignments are always 2D, right? It's just in the design world that they have a 3D opening up also when they do it. How will that get utilized? That is a question to be answered. There's a lot of things that we're doing, thinking or hoping that we're doing the right thing, but we may find that we have to backtrack a little bit, and what we do today may not be what we do tomorrow, because we may find out that we probably didn't make the right choice.
Okay, fair enough. Dale, does that answer your question?
I hope so. Like you said, I think that's a question to be answered as we get into this. So if roadway needs to tie their proposed alignment to an ELN, we'll just see how that works in the future.
I really don't think it's going to be an issue. That is something that I'm sure Jason and Oak will inform me on later.
Okay, cool. There's another question. It says, if you cut a cross section with this 3D data turned on, will some of these survey features show up in a cross section view, like the guardrail and guider rail, etc.?
I believe so, but to be honest, I haven't tried it yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Usually when it comes to cut cross sections, we don't do it often in survey. We do it on occasion, but as of yet, we have not had a need to do that. So I really don't know.
Okay, while people are thinking of more questions, I did want to point out that the email that was put in the chat for this event and for all the events that are going on, the word initiative was incorrectly typed in. The email to send any of your questions, if any questions come that you don't get the opportunity to put in the chat, is ncdot.ord.implementation.initiative@ncdot.gov. So just please make a note of that. It's been a struggle as far as grabbing things and just putting in there directly and typing things incorrectly, and I apologize for that. We still have quite a bit of time if anybody has any questions. And Faith, I don't mean to put you on the spot or anything, but is there anything that you can think of from a photogrammetry perspective that you may want to include as far as the work that we're talking about right now?
I think we're just kind of in the same boat as Emory. We're working on our workspace. We're very close. The pilot projects have shown us some errors and things that we need to fix, and I think we're in good shape. So we hopefully will have our workspace out soon, and then have everybody start looking at what we're delivering in the pilot projects to give us some feedback to see what we may or may not need to change for deliverables.
Okay, I understand.
I have a question if I could. I'm work with a company that's one of the SUE consultants for NCDOT. Currently, there's the utility that allows us to say who the owner of the water line or the telephone line, the material, that little kind of like a spreadsheet. Is this being incorporated in the ORD environment as well?
Yes, in a matter of speaking. In fact, I'll take a moment to show you what we've got. So for example, let's just say we've got this water line here. What we're going to do is we're going to go away from the I don't know the terminology. I think it was an ad hoc attribute was that we were using for in SS4. And now we're going to basically use Asset Manager and put item types on it. So what we would do is we would use this tool called Asset Manager. And we would open up a file. And in this case, bear with me just one moment. I went to the wrong place. So basically right here, we just type these in here and we'd say, hey, we want to add attributes to that, which we would then add. And after it's added, you should see that element if we would do a properties on it. We'll then have this. So it knew it was a water line. Now all you'll have to do is toggle who the owner is. So you'll be able to do those same type of items that you were able to do with that NC utility application. It's a slightly different workflow, but the same information will be provided to utilities. Now, we haven't worked out the details about, is this the best way for us to provide it to utilities? So that's some of the things that we will work out over time. It's like anything else. It's always a work in progress.
Emery, there's a
Emery.
in the chat asking, are the 3D pipe line styles attached to your feature codes, your survey feature codes, and are you shooting the pipes with the beginning and the end or connecting them in the office?
No, we're shooting them. They are connected, or they are linked to the feature codes, and we are using a linking code for start and end out in the field.
And there's another question as far as the actual survey stakeout. Will we continue to download the information through the Trimble link engine and continue to use an RXL format?
Yes, although that is one of the things I hope Bentley will improve upon. Currently, what we got to do is if we want to take alignments out to the field with us, we have to use TBC as a conduit. And what we do is we export this out as our alignment information out as an XML file, read it into TBC, and from TBC we can kick it to the data collector. I would like a straight export from MicroStation to our data collector like we have now, but it's currently not working properly.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hey, I got a question for you. The other day, I brought a survey in that has your elevations on the points, and I was playing around with it, and I thought I would try and extend the lines out, and I've created some points on the computer, but I just create them by the elevations, stuff like that. And it should put it in 3D as well. But when I went to do the adding it to the like a terrain model to do so I could do my triangles and everything, it wouldn't take it. Said it cannot do a 2D or cannot bring in a 2D or somebody not being in 2D. Do you know what's going on with that?
Well, not exactly, but I do have a couple things come to mind. One, are you sure you're working in a 3D file?
Okay,
I know that sounds pretty basic, but you know, it's talking about being a 2D component.
Well, the thing is though, I mean, you're doing everything in 2D anyway to start off with. And you do the, you know, how you do the view control 2D and then the 3D. And it puts it in 3D. I didn't know if you could start off in 2D and do it that way, or if I have to be in 3D.
Currently, everything we've been doing is working in a 3D file. Now I know, and well, let me back up. When this first started, when they first started putting the survey tools inside of ORD, you could only do survey in 3D. Since then, they have migrated to where you can do survey in 2D. And what happens then is everything, when you go to create that terrain model, it creates a copy of whatever model you're in, and it throws that terrain model into the 3D. Perhaps that's what you're doing, which may be a little bit different. I'd be more than happy to look at your files at some point in time if you want to provide them to me.
Okay, I was, like I said, I was just messing around with it, and I was trying to find out what it can and can't do. And I just didn't know if you extended a line that is, it was showing in 2D, but it's also in 3D. If you
Well,
extended it, keeping the elevation, seems to me it would have brought it in on that 3D, but it didn't.
you've hit on one thing that I think is important for everybody to realize. You know, in the past, we always drew microstation lines, right? You know, if we weren't using NC map, we were going up here to our drawing tools and we were placing smart lines or lines. And that worked in SS4. Now that these have more intelligence through the feature definitions, I find that if I'm going to do any work, I avoid these tools right here. I always come over here into my tree and I work here. You have the ability to create lines and everything over here. And I find that I avoid most of the pitfalls if I do work over in this. So that is something that we'll try to address in the training.
There may be some thing from the design side that may help with too. Is the only time when you start out with 2D design file and the default 3D is created is when you introduce a terrain model or a profile to a horizontal alignment. MicroStation will create a default 3D of that, and then you can use the view control to do the right click, show 2D and 3D, and everything. Like in roadway, we always work in 2D and let the 3D handle that stuff automatically for us. So you may have to start out with 2D and do one of those two things to get the default 3D created. Then whatever you do from now on is done in 2D, but it's automatically placed in 3D, the default model. So that that little bit of a caveat or a situation is the main thing we want to focus in ORD from the design file. The 2D and default 3D creation automatically is a concept that we want to make sure our folks gets because it's not automatic. You have to do one of those two things.
Yeah, there's a real disconnect between the survey world and the design world. You know, the guys in the design world, they get to work in that 2D environment and the 3D gets done automatically. You would think that same mindset would flow into the survey world, but it really doesn't. I could process all this into a 2D file, but at the end, I would just have a 2D file. Nothing gets done on the 3D side. So it's a struggle to know what the right answer is here.
And Emery, correct me if I'm wrong. I guess when you guys start off from scratch, you use 3D seed file, but other units they use all the 2D seed file, right?
That's correct. We're working in 3D solely now.
So when you bring in something, should you work in 3D or can you work in 2D? Do the view control, like I said, where you could do a 3D and a 2D.
Currently, we're working strictly in our 3D file.
Okay.
I could interject just a little bit that you have to remember that the 2D elements that you're bringing into your 2D file are passing through the creation of a feature, and that feature tells it to include it into your terrain model. If you're using a feature that does not have that switch on, it's not going to alter your 3D terrain model. It'll appear in 3D, it just won't be included in the creation of the TIN file, or the terrain file, or the terrain element. So that could be a point of confusion, I think.
That could very well be it, Tim. I know you have the ability to also tell it to manually add to the terrain model. That might be something that I don't know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I don't either. You're right. There's the graphical filters to include those things, but like I say, just because you draw something in the 2D file or in the 2D view, plan view, it may or may not alter the terrain model. It depends on whether it's been placed through the features, if that feature has been told to use the elevation component as part of the terrain model.
And Emery, you have a hand up. Patty, you have a question?
Yeah, hey, and I'm not sure if this was covered or not, but annotation scale, I guess, for the survey drawings, I guess those are going to be placed on, when our roadway drawing sheets or whatever are at different scales, that it's going to automatically scale. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct. So, for example, you'll see all our stuff here. If I drop that down, say I want to use 1 in 20, you should. Why did that not? My machine's locked up. I'm getting a spiral of death here. So, but yes, Patty, you are correct. And it does on our annotation scale.
And when we were talking about 2D and 3D files, I guess I was just thinking about coordinate, origins of the seed files and stuff like that. I assume that all that's been already kind of identified and state plane coordinates and all that.
Yes, it is.
Nothing really new on that front that has to be worried about.
It took a while, but there you got it.
Emery, I'm not sure if you heard Patty's question.
I guess not. I'm sorry.
It was just, Patty, did you want to ask it again?
Yeah, and I guess I'm not sure if I'm asking the right one. So I guess there's used to be different state planes and for different states and things like that. So I assume there's seed files for North Carolina have already been updated for ORD.
Yes, they have.
Okay.
They have, and of course, this is going to be down the road. We'll be getting new seed files at some point in time due to the datums changing. Probably in the year 2025, it'll be the 2022 adjustment. So everything will change accordingly then. As well as go away from the U.S. survey foot to the international foot.
Which we're opening up a completely different can of worms.
Oh, I know. As soon as I said that, I was like, why did I do that to myself?
So, well, honestly, it's time to start wrapping things up. If anybody has any last minute questions, you can speak now if you have a quick question. If not, you're welcome to send any emails to the correct email address, which is ncdot.ord.initiative@ncdot.gov. And if it's anything that's specifically for Emory, please put location surveys in the subject line so it is routed to the appropriate person who can answer that question. Emory, do you have anything else?
No, I think I'm good. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, so feel free to send them to me. It may be a little while for me to get to them. Like I said, we're definitely down in manpower around here, but I'll definitely get around to it.
Excellent, excellent. And as we're wrapping up, I did want to say there's a reminder that today, it's not too late to register for the OpenX Games at 5 p.m. today. So if you think you've missed the boat, you have not. Please go ahead and register through the NCLUG website. Stay tuned for the NCLUG presentation today at 3 p.m., which is session 9 for ORD with EAU. And also another reminder that Friday at noon is a question answer kind of wrap up session for everybody. Thanks again, Emory, for all your help. Some great things put together. I'm excited to start actually working in this environment. So and for everyone else, thank you so much for attending. Please be sure to let others know to become a member of NCLUG. It's free. And that way you'll get invites for all these different events that we put together with NCLUG and through our partnership with NCDOT. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thanks, Emory.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Emory.
You're welcome. Thanks, you guys. See you.